and this might be the most important, impactful tip of all of them, number 6.
I'm finally sharing my successful query letter. Hi there, I'm Nicole Wilbur. I'm a writer and newly agented author, and I'm super excited today to be sharing that successful query letter that got me an agent with you. But we are not just sharing the query letter, because my querying had numerous stages, and in one of the stages, I got absolutely 0 requests. In the second stage, the successful stage, I had 60% request rate. And there were changes between those 2 query letters, some big, some small, and I'm going to outline all of them in this video for you. We're going to do side-by-side comparison, looking at how I brought it from the 0 to the 60. Now, obviously, there's luck involved and that kind of thing, but I really do think that these, 6 tips or so, will help you improve your own query letter, help you think about it, and help you really catch the attention. I also have a fun bonus tip for sample pages. So we're gonna go over to a slideshow webinar style type thing right now, and let's take a look at the query letters.
We're really going webinar style here. My successful query letter plus versions that didn't work. All right, so thing number 1 that I learned about writing a successful query letter. Number 1 is choose comp strategically. Obviously, this is something that we know, right? In a query letter, it's very important that you have your comp titles, your titles that help the agent, A, understand what your book is, and B, give an indication of what audiences might like it, how it might sell. Now, let's look at the before and after here. In the version that I sent to it was really my second round in the beginning of 2025. I had 3 comp titles. They were Heiress Takes All, which was, let's just go here. It had 4,867 ratings on Goodreads and was published in 2024. Now that's not terrible. Obviously, it's sold some copies, right? You can assume probably 5 to 8, 9,000 maybe based on that. Obviously, it's within the last 5 years. That's what you want. You want one that's from a title from 3 to 5 years ago. It's YA. And it's a heist. My book is, as you can see there, a contemporary heist. So that's great. I also had How It All Blew Up, similar number of ratings, 2020. It's a little bit older, but that was a good comp. So Heiress Takes All I put in kind of for the heist plot of it all. How It All Blew Up was for the Italy setting and the kind of coming of age, queer, coming out, that kind of heart, as it says there. And then I also had National Treasure Edge of History, that's what it says, which was a show on Disney Plus in 2022, 2023 that was canceled after 1 season. This is the query letter that didn't get any requests. Now, again, not an agent, but my understanding of comps is that you want them to get someone excited about your book, and comps can really help you. Like when you say the selection is The Hunger Games meets The Bachelor, people know what that is immediately. That's like a high concept, right? So comps can help you get that concept across really quickly. However, or you're trying to like help them see how this might sell. If you look at this, they're not unsuccessful books. And they're good comps, but they weren't great. I even had someone look over my query letter for me, look over the package, and they called out the National Treasure one. And we're like, would agents recognize what this was? It was like a 1-season show, straight to Disney Plus, etc. So I ended up changing it to these. Thieves Gambit is a heist book, a heist thriller that came out in 2023. It has 16,000 ratings on Goodreads. Now, for a heist thing, obviously, more popular. Also, Thieves Gambit goes to different international locales. It's a little bit, Heiress Takes All it is high stakes, but it all happens in the US at this resort. At this girl's, she's stealing from her father. Thieves Gambit is this like international criminal competition, high stakes all over the world. That is actually a lot closer to my plot, the whole life, death, there's gunshots, that kind of thing. Much, much closer to my plot, including the emotional journey, than Heiress Takes All. Quite frankly, I hadn't read Thieves' Gambit when I wrote this query letter, although I was aware of it. And once I read it, I was like, obviously, this is the better comp. Not just because, it's the 16,000, although that does help. It also had a film option, so there was a lot of press around that because it had the film option at the same time that it was the publication announcement was announced. But also just that it was a better comp all around. I kept How It All Blew Up for the Italian setting and the queer themes, etc. And then I brought in the inheritance games. Now, another thing with comps, of course, is that you don't want the comps to be too big. And this one has 1 million ratings on Goodreads. It's also 2020, so it's again at the tail end of that time period you want. However, sequels are still being published. There was just a new, like a second kind of trilogy for the Inheritance games that's coming out. People are still into it. People are still reading it. So I wasn't so worried about the age. Is it too big to comp? I don't know. But I think it ended up working because it's that instant name recognition. Without that in there, people would be like, Thieves' Gambit, How It All Blew Up. Like, agents wouldn't necessarily know what they were. They might, especially if they're into that space, but they might not. Inheritance games, every single YA agent will know what that is. And so I think that that's why that worked. Was it too big to comp? I don't know. But is it a good comp? Will it appeal to that audience? Absolutely 100%. And so I went with it. I think it's really hard to get the perfect ones, but I think this ended up being a much stronger kind of pitch package to do Thieves' Gambit, How It All Blew Up, and the Inheritance games. And just so you can see, how I did my comps was saying it's the high octane action of Thieves' Gambit, Italian backdrop and queer heart of How It All Blew Up, with the intricate puzzles of the Inheritance games. I could have said it will appeal to readers of as well, but I just really wanted to pull out those plot elements. And that seemed to be well received by everyone I sent it to. So, thing number 2, keep the plot paragraphs concise. Let me show you something. Early, my plot paragraphs alone were 250 words. Final, 175 words. What did I cut? About 75 words, right? Look at the difference on the page. This is a web page that an agent's going to be looking at, right? Look at it's 75 words doesn't seem that many, but in the email, you can see how much more white space there is. You can see how much pithy and how much more concise the second one looks. Even just from a visual perspective, that 75 words being cut was huge. Also, alongside that, it made it more concise. It makes it more memorable. One of the things that I've learned, and if you're interested in me talking about conference pitching, because that is where I met my agent, and kind of tips and thoughts on that, it's that you don't have a lot of time with them, and the more details you give them, kind of the less they're going to remember. And I have something about this later, but it's really important that you're just kind of telling them the most important things that will get them curious and kind of get it across the line. So, hook length. I went in and I edited it down from 250 to 175. You need to keep it under 200 words is the rule that I've heard, and I think that that totally makes sense. Not the query letter, because there's, a paragraph above and a paragraph below this in the query letter, but that plot paragraph. Because how much is someone who's skimming this? Remember, agents are skimming. How much are they going to retain? Number 3, skim over unnecessary details and intermediary steps to get to the heart of the story. This one was really, really hard for me, and we're going to actually look at the exact paragraphs section by section. Now, all of the query is going to be up on here. I know I'm clicking around a lot. If you want to just read the query letter, check out my Substack. It's linked below. You can just read the query letter alongside this. Although I will show all of the text in this video, I'm not going to read it all out loud. So here is my early version. Lena Abers is a snitch. That line didn't change. Once I came up with it, I really wanted to keep it because I felt like it was just very attention grabbing. She blabbed on a friend to save her performance and no, she's not sorry. Once a violin prodigy, she now has 2 weeks to prove she's still good enough for the conservatory of her dreams. She can't afford a misstep, no rule breaking, no risks. Issue with this. The part that she's a snitch, that's a big character. That's the kind of the first chapter of the book. She tells on a friend. The important thing here is what she wants and her like weakness here. So she's very rigid, type A, no missteps, no risks, kind of cutthroat. We're not breaking the rules, etc. That's like and she wants to get into this conservatory. That's the highlight here. This, she blabbed on a friend to save the performance. Those are just kind of extraneous details. We need to get to the plot. So I cut it down and it just says, Lena Abers is a snitch. Everyone in the orchestra says so. That also gives another bit of character detail there. She is a musician. She has one last shot at admission to the music conservatory of her dreams. She can't afford a misstep, no risks. And you'll see I just, again, like made that more concise. I don't have to say no risks, no rule breaking, no missteps. We can condense that. I could maybe even get rid of like the no risks if I really wanted to. But I like the voiciness of it. Going to the next one. And this continues throughout the whole query letter. So here's paragraph 2 of the plot paragraphs. Which is why she should walk away when a charismatic stranger, Maisie, hints at her connection to the recently discovered and legendary Stralius violin. Except Maisie is the thief who uncovered the violin in the first place, and if her crew doesn't steal it back at the upcoming concert in Florence, a high-heeled, gun-wielding blackmailer will send them all behind bars. That is a lot of story setup in there. A little bit of sort of summarizing as well. So this bit, Maisie hints at her connection to the recently discovered violin. That's how Lena originally gets involved with her. But that's very synopsis-y and summarizing what happens. That's not necessary. The important thing is that she is recruited. Next bit, Maisie is the thief who uncovered the violin in the first place. If crew doesn't steal it black, blah, blah, blah. That's backstory. Now you might say, oh, the send them behind bars thing, that's stakes, and it is, and the blackmailer is important. She does come back in the new version. However, those are kind of stakes for the crew and Maisie at first, not for Lena. So they're not super important here. What is it? It's the goal, motivation, conflict, stakes that people want to hear, right? So if we look at this, let's see. We have goal, music conservatory, whatever. She wants to get in. Or goal is steal the Stralius. Motivation is this music conservatory. Conflict, can't afford a missteps. We're going to get more into the conflict. Stakes we haven't covered yet, but it's not the jail thing because that's not affecting her. So we end up with, which is why she should walk away when a charismatic stranger, Maisie, recruits her for a mission to steal the recently discovered and legendary Stralius violin from Florence. Next paragraph. The crew needs an inside woman, Lena needs an accolade, and only Maisie can get Lena a spot playing at the Florentine concert, which will guarantee Lena's conservatory admission. Besides, if the heist goes sideways, Lena will simply turn the crew in herself. The rewritten version is simply a slightly more concise-ish version of this, slightly reworded. It's not even more concise. But the bit I took out was the besides if the heist goes sideways, Lena will simply turn the crew in herself. That is, not important. That's not important. It's like justification is trying to be like, here, believe it, plausibility. I didn't think that was necessary. So it ended up being the crew needs an inside woman. Stealing the Stralius would make Lena a criminal, but only Maisie can get Lena a spot playing in the Stralius's unveiling concert, which will guarantee her conservatory admission. Criminal it is. Now, is that a little bit of a run-on sentence? Yes, I did not say this was perfect, but I actually have a wonderful friend in publishing who came up with this little paragraph here, like in 2023, actually, the whole guarantee your spot, criminal it is, and I loved it, and I kept it, and I booted it out for the round of queries that the early one is here, and I ended up bringing it back in the final version of the query because I really like how it's presented. There's a little bit of a conflict, and it's through the whole story, this whole like, I don't want to be a criminal, but I am being a criminal, but I am breaking these rules, but expectations and that kind of thing is a through line, which is why I like emphasizing that. And it kind of goes to some of the themes in here. Anyways, not that themes are generally supposed to be important in the query letter, but this was very, very similar. This is the next plot paragraph. So it was originally as Lena infiltrates Florence's world of prestige and corruption. I changed that to as she infiltrates the elite circle orchestrating the Stralius's unveiling. Again, I feel like that might take a second to see what it's saying, but I felt like the circle that's orchestrating the unveiling, that's like putting together this concert, was more specific than world of prestige and corruption. People were also confused when I went on, or when I had it on the shit no one tells you about writing. They were like, isn't she already there? Like, what do you mean she's infiltrating? She's a musician already. And so I was like, okay, they're orchestrating the unveiling. She discovers she's not the only one after it. Early. To steal it first, they must decipher a historical mystery, keep their eclectic crew together, and plan an impossible heist before the curtain rises. So we have some conflict in there. We have to figure out this mystery, plan the heist. How does the mystery connect to the heist? That's not clear. It's not fixed in the other one either. Maybe that's something that needs to be improved on. I don't know. And then we have, but most dangerous of all, Lena is falling for Maisie. Again, that goes back to the like, I want to follow the rules, but this is criminal, but it's what I want kind of thing. The final one here is to steal it first, she and Maisie must decipher a historical mystery while staying ahead of a gun-wielding blackmailer. There's our blackmailer! Woo! And I did not mention impossible heist, even though I really like having impossible heist in there, because it's like emphasizes that it is an impossible heist that goes into the conflict. But I did say to steal, so potentially, it's a little bit of redundancy maybe. We have the same thing. She's falling for Maisie. And the final paragraph. Early, when the plan collapses and she faces a choice between the crew and the conservatory, Lena must decide what rules are worth breaking, which dreams she'll sacrifice, and how far she'll go to save Maisie's life. Final, when Lena is caught and her freedom and future are at risk, she must decide what dreams she'll sacrifice and how far she'll go to save Maisie's life. I decided choosing between the crew and the conservatory was a little bit too, not too on the nose, but she also just met the crew. And so she's falling for Maisie, and Maisie's the important one in here. So we just trimmed that down. I don't know. It's really hard. I'm sure if you've written a query letter, you can relate. It's really, really hard to trim things down and to be concise. But I do think the final version was better. At least there were fewer details for people to get distracted and confused by. You need enough details to grip, but not enough that they're like, wait, what do you mean she had a connection to the Australias, but she stole it? What do you mean the plan is collapsing? Does that mean blah, blah? There we go. All right, let's go to tip number 4, which is don't bury the lead, or as my friend says, put the sexy parts up front. This is a very early version of it. I think this was before I'd ever queried, but in an early version, I had, most importantly, Florence in the 4th paragraph. In the final version, I moved Florence to the 2nd paragraph. And my friend's comment was like, this needs to be upfront. People need to know that this isn't just somewhere boring in North America, that it's a sexier location. Totally agree with that. Also, the bits in red are the kind of important points here. So music, legendary violin, stealing, heist, etc. And you can see that we have the same where it's music in the 1st paragraph, and then we have legendary violin, steal, Florence, all in paragraph 2 there. Also because, again, it's more concise. Those 3 important things stand out. So don't bury the lead. Make it clear what we're doing right away and where we are. And that was a huge part of the pitch that I wanted agents to remember is heist, Florence, violin, music, sapphic love. Those are the things you need to take away. And so they really need to be there up front. All right. 5 was keep the author bio positive and focused. Again, this is an early version and one that my friend helped me with. Let's take a look at this. So we have here, the early was, I am a product manager and digital nomad with no house or car, but a camera roll full of adventures. Much like Lena, I found community love and an urge to question societal expectations abroad. I have a growing AuthorTube channel with over 90,000 views. Now it's over 175,000 views. Thank you very much. But I also changed that from views to subscribers in the later version because views, anybody can get views, I feel like. Anyways, okay. Thing with this was the no house or car. They were like, that could be construed a little down on your luck, negative, etc. That is not what you want to say. So originally, I had that as, I changed it to free from house and car payments, free from the in trappings of normal suburban life. Something like that is what I said. It ended up being product manager and digital nomad, adventuring a new country every month, because I felt like that is kind of key to the story, right? Because the main character is traveling. There's a travel feel. It's fun. We're in Italy. Adventure, action adventure, you know? Much like Lena, I found community, sapphic love, and an urge to question societal expectations abroad. Again, that's touching on why I wrote the book, why I'm qualified to write the book, what inspired it, that kind of thing. Growing author tube channel, blah, blah, blah. I added the Oxford Creative Writing Program because I was like, that's kind of cool. I don't really have any credentials. So that's in there, which is fun. And then we have the call to action, which I've heard suggested in places, and I decided to implement it. Okay, I have one final tip, and this might be the most important, impactful tip of all of them. Number 6, sample pages and where to focus them. Let me just show you what I did. So in my round that got 0 requests, I had put a new little thing at the beginning of my book. It's really an interstitial, like how some will do like an email or a newspaper article or a poster or something like on the first page of a book, which you can skim or not skim, and then you go to the prose, right? That is what it was. So the Stralius violin, renowned for a tone unmatched in richness. And if I was like Queen of the Universe, I would have that in like a newspaper style or something, similar to a map, like that kind of thing, interstitial on the first page. And then we would go into the prose, which the exact same first line, exact same prose, exact same everything in the 60% version. But in the 60% version, I did not have the interstitial. In the 0 request version, I did have the interstitial. And I just think that character, like the faster you get a connection to a character, the faster you can show off your writing. You know, it's not bad writing here. The faster you can get to that curiosity. And even though my beta readers did say, like, they were like, oh, wow, I'm really curious. Like, I thought this was a real thing. This is so cool. Beta readers aren't agents. Readers aren't agents, right? I think the agents are looking for, can they write? Is this interesting? Am I connected to this character? And having that interstitial in there, if I'm an agent who's just like skimming, I skim that first bit. Maybe I don't even get to the 3rd paragraph where the prose starts and I'm like, what? This is okay, next. You know what I mean? So I think that really made a huge difference, was not doing the interstitial and going right into the prose. Secondly, another thing that I started doing in this round, in the 60% round, a lot of agents will ask for your first 10 pages. My first scene was actually 6 pages, and I only sent them those first 6 pages. I started only sending the first 6 pages instead of the first 10, because the first 6, that scene, that chapter, ends on a really good cliffhanger that everyone's like, wow, like this is a great ending. It's a huge curiosity one. It's, a good sentence, intriguing, etc. And so I was like, you know what? I will leave them wanting more. So that is the end of my tips for writing a good query letter. My name's Nicole Wilbur. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up, especially if it helped you at all. Throw a comment down below about writing queries if you disagree or agree with any of these tips. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.